Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, I want to talk about one of the fastest ways that you can make your judge angry. Now, have you ever stood in front of your judge and they just seemed really irritated or really short or like they really just weren't listening? And that's a situation I think a fair amount of clients find themselves in. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to hit like and also subscribe to the channel so you get notified as new videos are released. The problem is that you're essentially a lot of times telling the judge that they're wrong. And a lot of times you're doing that in ways that you don't even recognize that you're doing. So I'll tell you how this works. One of the problems that you have is that when you send the message to the judge that they're wrong, a lot of times in most jurisdictions, this is the judge that you're in front of repeatedly. Now, sometimes you'll get a different judge for because somebody's out sick or something happens or whatever. But in most cases, you're in front of one judge consistently for a long period of time. Now, here in California, our judges switch out about every 2 to 4 years, depending. They do rotations through the different departments. And so, different states have different ways of handling that kind of thing. But sometimes you have a judge that is our commissioner. Like we have a commissioner here in California. We have what's called a commissioner in California. And a lot of times those people don't rotate. We had one in North County that was there for, 14 or 15 years and she never rotated. And so, sometimes you're in front of that same judge for the entirety of your case. And so telling the judge they're wrong about something is really not a good strategy when this is the person that you have to keep coming in front of. And here's why this is problematic. Because most of the time, when you didn't get the result that you were looking for, there's something in there that the court has asked you to do or deal with or fix in order for you to be able to start moving towards the result that you want. So what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Let's say that one of the concerns is housing instability. Let's say that you're in a custody situation and one of the concerns is that you have housing instability. And the court says, well, I'm going to have the kids with the other parent until the parent A has housing and a place to go. Okay. A lot of times parent A will feel frustrated because they'll feel like, well, I'm the non-working parent. The other parent's the one with access to all the funds. They're the ones with the income. So this isn't fair because I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm having to sleep on a friend's couch and I don't have a way to create, housing stability. So this isn't fair to me that I don't get more parenting time with my kids. And a lot of times in that situation, people will do something like file a motion for reconsideration, or I've even seen people try to file an appeal, which is very complex and very expensive if you do it through an attorney. But it's almost, in my opinion anyway, from what I know about having helped Thomas with appeals and all that kind of thing, is very, very difficult to do. I don't think I could do an appeal in my own case, even with 15 years of paralegal experience. I don't think that I could do that. And so these are very complicated. And there's a lot of rules around appeals. You have to have asked for a statement of decision ahead of the hearing and, all these little things. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer and I don't know every little rule, but I'm just saying for appeals, it's very, very complex and all these little things come into play that you have to go out and research. And it's things that like you had to have done before the fact, before your appeal even qualifies for an appeal. So it just gets super complicated. And then, so a lot of people do end up filing a motion for reconsideration just because it's simpler, it's easier. It's just a regular motion, which is a little bit easier for most people to figure out. But either one of those is telling the judge, hey, I think you got it wrong. And I'm not saying that you should never file one of these. Thomas filed an appeal on one of his cases a couple years ago and won the appeal and was absolutely correct in that the court got it wrong in a very, procedural type of way. But most of the time when we're filing especially as self-represented people, we're filing a motion for reconsideration. We're not usually doing it because we think the court had some technicality that they got wrong. We're usually doing it because we think the court's judgment or view of our situation is wrong, like the housing instability issue. And I'm going to come back around to that and tell you why that is, how I would deal with that and why that's important to understand. But again, also the body language thing. Don't forget that, because I talk about that a lot. And the way you're presenting in court, you're rolling your eyes, if you're sighing, if you're, like shrugging your shoulders and doing all those kinds of things, you're essentially telling the court, I think you're dumb and I think you're not getting this right. I think you're screwing this all up. And of course, if you make your judge angry, you're not going to get the result that you're looking for, right? It's like going into a restaurant and being rude to the server. You really think you're going to get good service? Probably not. Same thing in the courtroom. If you're rude and you're difficult and you're not following procedures and you're filing motion after motion, court's probably not going to be too happy with you. So let's say that you are in the type of situation where you do have something like, okay, I'm couch surfing and I'm not getting to see my kids because of it, and the other parent has all the money and all of these things, and I think the court was wrong, and I'm going to do a motion for reconsideration. The reason the court wasn't wrong if they gave the other parent the vast majority of the parenting time is because they're not looking at it from a fairness perspective between you and your ex-spouse. And that's how most of us are looking at these things. This is why we feel the judge is wrong, because we feel like this isn't fair. You're not seeing what's happening between us. That's not the problem. The problem is, I want to say the court doesn't care. And it's not that when I say that, I don't mean the court doesn't care as a person. That judge may care. They may care as a human being, as an individual. But from the perspective of their job of the law and what they're expected to do, that isn't one of the points of consideration that's within their scope of what they're trying to analyze to make this decision according to the law in your state. And so they're not looking at it the way we're looking at it. They're not going what's fair and what's not. So if the problem is that you have housing instability and you file a motion for reconsideration and you go back in front of that judge and you still have housing instability, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get the same result, because they're going to say, well, I'm still not going to let the kids go with you more because it's not good for the kids. It's unstable for them. It might make them worry about you, or it might make them uncomfortable because they're having to go into this friend's house where there isn't really any place for them to be, and you don't have beds, and there's nowhere for them to sleep, and we're not going to let them sleep on the floor, and we're not going to, so there's all these things the court is looking at about why this might be detrimental for the children. And unfortunately, in the process of that, they don't have the luxury of caring about the fairness between the spouses. And so what you have to do in that situation is you got to get a job. You got to get a roof over your head. If that means filing a motion for an advance against the estate because your spouse won't give you any money, or filing a motion for support, or whatever you need to do, and finding a job and doing your part and doing all you can to fix whatever the issue is. Because then, even if you have a 1-bedroom and you have a mattress on the floor for each kid, the court is going to give you parenting time with your kids. They want you to have that parenting time. But if you're floating all over and you're unstable and there's no specific place that you're sticking to the planet, to use Thomas's phrase, then they're probably not going to give you overnights in that situation. And you're probably going to have limited daytime visits just because that's the nature of what the court's dealing with in that situation. And so we have to be able to remove ourselves emotionally from this and understand that this isn't about fairness between us and the other party. And you continuing to tell the judge they got it wrong, they got it wrong, they got it wrong isn't going to help you. It's only going to upset your judge. So what you have to do is to start looking at this not from the perspective of, the judge being wrong, but what is the judge's concern? What are the court's concerns? What does the court want me to do? And a lot of times when the court gives their orders, and judges are very good about this in my experience, a lot of times when they give their orders, they'll say, well, because of this, this is what we're going to do. So a lot of times they'll tell you what their concern was or what the issue was before they give their order. And so if you can really, again, this is hard to do a lot of times, you guys, because you got to remove yourself emotionally. So again, observing in that environment and educating yourself and knowing what to expect and doing all those kinds of things to help you manage that emotional side will give you the better ability to step back from the picture and say, what is the judge wanting me to do? As opposed to coming at it from the perspective of, why is the judge getting this wrong? Whatever the judge's opinion is, that's their opinion. So, whatever their finding is, whatever their order is, that's their order. And so whether you like it or not, this is the reality of what you're dealing with. And if you want to figure out how to change the outcome, you have to know the rules of the game. And that's really what it comes down to. So I hope that's helpful. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com. If you want to learn about my coaching programs, you go /VIP-coaching. And there is a button on there where you can book a free strategy session with me to get help with your own specific situation. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time.